So this is a video on how I like to teach the scent discrimination exercise for ANKC obedience. I like this method because it isolates the discrimination from the retrieve. So dogs who might have trouble understanding that this is about scent discrimination, not just about bringing something back. It's really good for those dogs. Particularly, lots of dogs become quite object focused, and when there's an object out there, they just want to bring it back and they don't think about using their nose. So this method teaches the dog that it's all about using their nose, and then we add in the retrieve later on. The big benefit to teaching it this way is that I can clearly communicate to the dog what the criteria is for the scent discrimination part without damaging my retrieve. So if you're trying to teach scent discrimination with the retrieve and the dog brings you back the wrong item, you might choose not to reward that, and that can create some confusion for your dog, the dog thinking that perhaps retrieving is not the right thing to do. So by separating out the two aspects, I bring a lot more clarity for the dog, and I won't accidentally punish my retrieve by not rewarding it if it's the wrong object. So there's a few things that your dog will need to know before you have a go at this. The first thing is a retrieve. So the dog needs to understand a cue to run out, pick something up and bring it back to you. Another behaviour that your dog will need to know is an article indication. So they need to be able to run out, put their nose on something and hold it there until you mark and release them. Touch. Lots of people might have taught that already for scent detection or for tracking. If not, you're not sure how to teach it, just get in touch. I've got lots of videos about that. The third thing that your dog will need to know before you start this is a marker for positive reinforcement. So a marker that says to your dog, you're correct. I like a terminal marker, one that terminates the behaviour. So for my dog, when he hears his marker, he runs back to me to get his reward. So it says to him, you are correct, run back to me and get your reward. So you'll see when Solly does his article indication here, he holds his nose on the article until he hears his marker, and that says to him, run back to me and get your reward. So those are the three things your dog will need to know before you get started. It's also good if you've got some sort of stationing behaviour. So I like to use a foot target. We're going to be asking our dogs to hold a position while we reset things, and also to stand in heel a lot. And if you don't want to ruin your criteria for heel, then just having a disposable behaviour like that foot target is a good one. So now you've got those behaviours, you're ready to start training the discrimination aspect. We do that by changing from one object that your dog is going to go out and touch with their nose to putting out two objects. You'll see in this video that I actually put out the object that's hot, so the object that I've held is going to be closest to the dog, and I'm doing that in order to try and set them up for success. Unfortunately, Solly goes past that one and he makes a little error, and all I do is just wait him out. Soon enough he's going to try the other one, and as soon as he puts his nose on the correct one, I click. So we just continue on like that until the dog gets the idea that they're only going to get rewarded when they're touching the object that I've handled. It's a little bit of trial and error, but we're setting the dog up to be successful and thereby minimising any frustration. So if he puts his nose on the wrong one, all I do is wait, and soon enough he's going to try the other one, and then I can use my marker to communicate that that's correct. So it's all learning through self-exploration, but we've set him up so he can be successful. He's just a little bit confused there. He wasn't very familiar with the verbal cue touch, so that's why there was a little bit of hesitation there, and he gets confused on the next rep as well. So I'm pretty happy with how that's going. So I've put out a third object this time. Again, I've put the hot one towards the front, hoping that he'll come across that early on, or straight away even. He's just a bit confused with the cue there. So with this method, it's really no problem if your dog does make a mistake, because you're not ruining your retrieve in the process. You can just wait until they hit on the correct one, and they'll learn through that self-exploration. If you've got a dog who's particularly prone to frustration, and maybe they try one and then they try the next one and they're still incorrect, you can increase the number of hot items. So you might have 2 that are hot and 1 that's not. And that way you're just increasing the odds of your dog coming across the correct one and getting a reward, which is going to keep their frustration lower. You can see I've got some over arousal creeping in here, so it's definitely time to end this session. So once your dog is proficient at doing the 3 items, you can slowly increase the number of items. Looks like I'm up to about 7 items here. I just use jar lids. It's important that they all look the same, so it's only odour that your dog is using to find the correct one. You can see he's developed a lot of confidence now. He understands the task. You can also see the benefit of having the foot pad there, so it tells him where he should wait. I don't have to worry about wrecking my stay while I'm playing this game, or making the criteria for my heel loose. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I like to have a whole bunch of those, what I call disposable behaviours, when I'm teaching these little games, because it allows me to focus on the one thing. And in this example, the one thing I'm focused on is scent discrimination. I'm not worried about my retrieve, I'm not worried about my heel, I'm not worried about my stay. I can really just hone in on the one thing that's important. You can see Solly's really enjoying this exercise. That's because his confidence is high. He understands what's expected of him. He's getting them correct, which means he's getting nice rewards, using food to get the reps in most of the time, and then a toy every now and again just to keep him really motivated. So once your dog understands that this is about scent discrimination, you're going to want to add your retrieve back in. I've begun the session with the same scent discrimination exercise that we've been working on, just to clue Solly in that this game is about sniffing, and then I'm going to add in just one retrieve item. It's really important that you leave the lids out because they're providing that cue to the dog that this game is about sniffing. Don't just act, don't just run out and grab the thing. We want them understanding that this is about sniffing. In that rep, I just clicked him for finding the one that smells like me. I didn't require him to bring it back yet. On this one, I'm just going to give him a little bit of a prompt to encourage him to bring it back. You'll also hear that I'm doing a cue transfer. So his cue to go out and touch the item has been washer. The cue for him to retrieve an item is fetch. And the cue that I want him to have for this new game is retrieve. So as I'm switching this to a retrieving the object rather than a touching the object, I'm saying retrieve, which is an unknown cue. He looks at me funny. And then I follow that by fetch, which is the known cue. It's the lids, the articles, that are providing him with the cue that, hey, this is about sniffing. It's not just about retrieving.
Retrieve, fetch.
So on this rep, you're actually going to see Solly get a little bit confused. And so rather than insisting on a retrieve, when he does come across the correct item, I'm just going to mark that. If your dog is struggling, it's okay to lower your criteria to try and communicate the important bit. The important bit in this exercise is the scent discrimination. I can add the retrieve back in as he's getting more confident.
Retrieve, fetch.
So he went straight to it that time, so I was able to push for the retrieve. He wasn't too frustrated. Always trying to manage arousal with this dog. He frustrates very easily. Makes it hard for him to learn. I need to break things right down for him.
Retrieve, fetch. Fetch.
You can see him thinking. He's using his nose, finds the correct one, and I push for the retrieve again on that one. You can see if I had have only used retrieve objects for this dog, it would have been very, very confusing for him. It's likely his retrieve would have really become quite damaged while he was trying to figure out the scent discrimination aspect.
Retrieve. Fetch.
When he is having trouble, I just try and be passive. I want him to figure out the answer. I don't want him to think that I've got the answer. You'll also see that the cue transfer is going well. He goes on retrieve on this one. This one was a real shame because he did pick up the correct item and then it all got messy. So when it all goes terribly, I like to cue something that the dog knows. So I just cued a hand touch then. I can stop him from getting too frustrated and I can reset and help him be successful on the next one. So cueing a really well-known behaviour, something that your dog can do really well, is a great way to respond to an error and then set up your dog for success the next time.
Retrieve.
Okay, so that was the first session introducing the retrieve. Definitely his understanding is still brittle, but we're getting there. So in this next session, I'm starting with a retrieve because I really want to start cueing him into the idea that the retrieve is important as well. Just to make sure that I keep him thinking, I'm still going to use jar lids as a cue that this game is about sniffing. For this type of dog who often likes to do rather than think, then we need to really consider how we can set up the learning environment to get them thinking before they act. So the lids act as that cue that, hey, you should use your nose for this game. So as in the previous session, I'm going to increase the number of retrieve items as we go until there's no lids there at all.
Retrieve.
So he's doing quite nicely here. You'll often hear me click before he completes the retrieve. That's because the bit I'm interested in is the scent discrimination. I don't always need him to sit and deliver to hand. So my click tells him he was correct and he can take the food. So we've got rid of the lids now. All retrieve items. Each time you introduce one of the new retrieve items, so I'm using the metal here, but I would repeat this process for the wood and the leather as well. You can see this is not an easy task for him. He's really having to think. When he's incorrect, I'm trying to just wait and see if he'll self-correct. And he did, because remember, he's got that prior experience of just doing the discrimination exercise. He knows how to self-correct.
Retrieve.
So unfortunately, I don't have any video of some other steps that are involved. I just popped out this afternoon to see if he still remembers this exercise. We haven't done it for probably 12 months. And yes, he does remember, which is great. Some other things that you need to consider with this training: introducing another person's scent. So it's not just about human odor, it's about the handler's odor. I would do that at the stage when you've got about 6 lids out. So I'd get another person to handle some of the lids for me, and then just put my one out with my odor on it to teach the dog that. I definitely wouldn't do that at a retrieving stage. I would just do it at an article indication stage. And then you've got to consider sort of some errors that might crop up. There's 3 main reasons that your dog might make mistakes. One is over arousal, and so that's when your dog is sort of doing and not thinking. So if your dog is prone to those mistakes, then I would think about setting things up so they can be successful. So you might have many sessions where you leave the articles out, like the lids, so the dog has that as a cue. Another reason your dog might make errors is because they simply don't understand. So if they just seem to be potluck, then I would go back to using the lids to teach the scent discrimination. Then the third reason is usually just motivation. So if the dog just isn't engaging, then that could be a motivation problem, and that needs to be fixed away from this exercise. So I hope you enjoyed that. I had fun watching through these old videos and revisiting the process. It's definitely one I've found to be useful.